Oh God. Why? Why? No. 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 Kill it. Kill it with fire.
Hell hath no fury like the curse that is searing into the back of my retinas, through my skull and into the deepest parts of my subconscious, sitting still, hiding like a virus that lies dormant, waiting for a vivid, deep sleep dream fueled by psychedelics and melatonin to rip it into the forefront of my mind once again, like a repressed childhood memory that manifests itself in monsters in the darkest places. Like Medusa, petrifies its victims with its sheer horror so that it might feast on the fear and sweat oozing from every pore in their body.
And I'm on about it.
What's good, everybody? My name is Modi. This is Modi Makes, and today we're gonna be creating some incredibly cursed beings in the way of doing a realistic Pokemon painting. I've always thought about how, if Pokemon was real, it would be just the most horrifying thing ever. You would definitely not allow your child of whatever age Ash is in the show. You would not let him go around in the wilderness fighting these creatures and then enslaving them to fight the other creatures. I'm going to be showing you guys a realistic Blastoise painting that I created. And I'm sorry ahead of time if the audio is a little bit different. My mic decided that it wanted to be super quiet, which is awesome. So I'm just recording this straight onto the iPad mic. Now that I've been doing this for this long and I've gotten pretty committed, it's time for me to go after some nicer equipment so I can bring some nicer content to you fine feathered folks at home. So let's get into it. Now you guys might be noticing that you're at a little bit of a different angle than you usually are when I shoot from my desk here, and that is because I'm gonna be doing something a little bit different today. I recorded the screen recording on my iPad for this video while my laptop was still in the shop, so I couldn't get good content of me actually making the piece and having me commentate while I was making the piece like I would normally do. So now I'm going to be reacting to it alongside you guys. Let's start her off here, shall we? So the first thing you guys are gonna notice is I have this really sloppy blue line sketch to kind of get the general form down, and then I go over with this red line sketch to get more of a sharp, clarified thing so I can get more of the details in there. I'm trying to make the Blastoise a lot more intimidating and monster-like, like I had mentioned. So you can see there I'm kind of giving him like a vertical slit snake eye, lots of skin wrinkles and just things that make it a lot more visceral. I kind of went for a combination of a snapping turtle and almost like some sort of rock creature. Now I'm gonna come in with the paints, and on my initial paint layers, I'm actually going to use the exact same colors as the normal Blastoise that I'm just sampling from a picture that I have up in the corner as reference, so that I can kind of get it to be, you know, as a base, pretty close to the original before I start messing it up and getting it real weird. And you'll notice that I've given him these big pauldrons on the sides. I mean, he has the shell that comes around, but I felt like it would be cooler if he had these like giant, almost rock-like pauldrons that cover him like he has armor on. You can see I'm painting them in right now. And you can see on the face, I gave him kind of that pointed snout, just like a snapping turtle would have. I'm just gonna be going in and putting all my base paint layers in and then erasing right around the outlines so that I can use them as clipping masks. I'm kind of like giving him some extra scaly skin and stuff in certain areas where I felt like there was too much blank space, and I'll be going in later and really defining those. And one of the things that I was kind of battling with while I was doing this is how to do the shadows right, especially on the skin, because a lot of the times with human skin, you'll have what's called subsurface scattering, which is where the light actually penetrates into the skin, scatters around, and in the shadowed areas, it'll still have sort of a red glow to it. And I kind of wanted to do something similar for this, even though I'm not sure that turtle skin really works that way, but it's a good shorthand for the human eye to reference that as skin. And here you can see I'm coming in and just getting the detailed shadows and all of those wrinkles in the skin there, really trying to push them to be hyper exaggerated. I say that this is a realistic painting, and honestly, it's only kind of true. It's really more like my style of painting that I try to make as realistic in the shading and the coloring and everything as I possibly can, but really pushing everything to the extremes as much as possible just to show you how weird these creatures are. As you can see in the skin, like I was talking about, I ended up using sort of like this purplish color in the shadows to kind of get this idea that there's a red coming through from the sunlight and stuff, and scattering that and creating more of a reddish glow to the blue in the backs. Then I ended up going with more of like a tealish green on the highlights to give it some sort of atmospheric reflection. I'm coming in here and really detailing all of that rock texture that I was talking about on the pauldrons. I felt like giving it all the cracks and the chips and stuff really made it feel like this is a Blastoise that's been through a ton of shit in his past and is just fully experienced like a gladiator that's been through so many bouts that he's about to earn his wooden sword to get out of the arena. So what I did for those initial shadow cracks, I changed it to a blending mode so that in the highlighted areas it shows up as a much lighter contrast, and in the darker areas it shows up as a much deeper contrast. And now I'm just exaggerating that even more with the black lines that I'm coming in with. And for this line work, I'm actually not using a paintbrush, because I find when I do a lot of digital painting, I don't really like just making the paintbrush super small and going in that way. I like using more of a textured sketching brush. So this is something that's more akin to like a charcoal pencil or something like that, that I think still has a good toothy texture to it and works with the paints, but has more clarity than a small paintbrush would have. Here was the most fun, but also the most tedious part for me. I went into the whole chest plates area and really gave it this intense turtle shell texture. I felt like these vertical, almost bark-like textures really worked well for here, and this is one of the things that I was most happy with how it turned out. So I just went in with that initial pass on that blending mode that I was talking about, then came in with highlights, and then used my toothy brush to outline the edges of each of the shadowed areas to make it look like they're really three-dimensional and popping out. And as you zoom out, you'll see that it looks really good. And making sure that on the bright areas where the sun is hitting it directly, you have directional highlights that are coming directly from the sun spot. But then on the areas where it's indirect, you'll see that I'm actually using bounce light and having the highlights coming from the opposite side, and that really sells like this sense of three-dimensionality and stuff. So there's a couple things that I was really proud of with this, and a couple things that I wasn't as proud of about it. I'm not necessarily super good at like perspective at much of the time, and color is also something that I tend to not be as good at, but I'm working on constantly. The things that I am really good at tend to be shading and texture, and so you can see that like the shadows and the texture I think turned out really great here. But there are some serious perspective issues. I actually like how the colors turned out too on this one. They're not, I wouldn't say they're probably super accurate, but I like how it looks visually. But you'll see that on the right leg of the Blastoise is like coming out kind of in the front of the shell, whereas the left leg is more like properly placed to where it should be, and they don't really make sense with each other. And I didn't really notice that in my sketch until I took away all the sketch lines and kind of started getting into the more detailed paint work. And you can see here I'm just coming in and adding in just a ton of extra wrinkles, really giving it a ton of contrast, so it makes it look like really leathery kind of skin. I thought it worked well for a Blastoise, and it's a fictional creature anyway, so I felt like I could kind of get away with that. And then here is my second favorite part behind the turtle shell chest plates, going in and doing all of these little scale details. And I honestly do them in the exact same way that I did the chest plate ones. I just shaded in all the areas between with that blending mode shading, and then I come in with the highlights and then came in with the darker pencil texture and outline each of those areas. And I just really liked how they ended up coming out. It added in this little extra kind of dragon scale-esque thing that really made it turn into this creepy creature. And that's really all I was going for at the end of the day with it. And it really brings in the form of, in this case, the cheek, but I also do it on some of the hands and the knees later as well. It really sells the form of the curvature. I've always learned when I was in art school, and also just in general, I've always kind of noticed this, that if you want to make something look realistic, you tend to need to make it look hyper realistic, because if you draw things exactly as they would look, they look a little too muted and there's not enough contrast necessarily to it. But if you make things look hyper real, then it's really easy for the eye to pick out what should be in the foreground, background, what's popping out, the three-dimensional form of stuff and everything. And you can see I'm coming in and doing a lot of these same cracked textures on the shell as well, to also make that look kind of more battle-hardened and give it kind of a rockier texture. Which, you know, if a turtle was this large, it might end up actually kind of looking like that at the end of the day, though it would probably have more of a pattern to it. But, you know, this Blastoise has been monstered by all sorts of crazy dragons and mushroom creatures. I don't even know at this point, because I only really ever knew much about the first 2 generations of Pokemon, and then I trailed off real quickly after that, and now there's like 900 million different Pokemon and I don't know any of them. Really makes me feel kind of old. Yeah, and then just coming in here and really trying to push back those spikes that are coming out of the background, make them very dark. And you know, I'm still not completely sold on how much I like how this turned out. I think it's a very interesting drawing that has some serious problems and also some things that are really, really good about it. Kind of reminds me of when I would do work in college. Just like you would bring something in and your professor would always be like, so there's some things that are great in this, and then there's some things that are horrible. and you get so focused on certain details when you're making it that you don't even notice that you've done these like horrible mistakes and stuff. That always happens to me. And you know, sometimes you get lucky and everything kind of meshes together well, and sometimes you get less lucky and things are very obviously wrong. And this happened to be one that was kind of like directly down the middle. So not really sure how I feel about it at the moment, but I think it definitely manages to get the goal that I was going for of making this monster. And here we can come in with this crazy snake eye that I really pushed even further by adding these extra little design elements across the top, like these ridges in the whites of the eye and stuff like that. And you know, one of the important things to trying to make something look realistic is making sure that the eye is like very hyper real, because that's, you know, something that we stare at all the time. So it's pretty easy for us to tell when things look a little bit off. So I'm going in here and adding in all of the little fibers in the cornea? No, yeah, cornea? I don't remember right now. The colored part of the eye. All those muscle fibers that help to tense up and loosen up to make the pupil dilate and shrink and stuff, and just adding in a lot of like different lighting in there and how it would be caught because it's all three-dimensional textures in there. You can't just draw it flat, it would look terrible. So there you have it, folks. That's my realistic Blastoise piece, and let's get into some final shots really quick. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. It helps out a ton. Share this video with anyone you think might be a big Pokemon fan that you want to terrify and ruin their childhood. I might make this into a series. I'm not sure yet. Let me know down in the comments if you liked this video, if you like the style of video, if you like the Pokemon painting, and if you want to see more Pokemon paintings. If this video does pretty well, obviously I'll make it into a series, and Pokemon tends to do really well on YouTube. So hope and pray with me. Let's make it happen. If this is your first video you've seen from me because you came in under that trap, gotcha. And you know, check out some of my other content. I think you'll enjoy it. So give me a chance here. And you know, as always, if you would, please subscribe. That would be awesome. Please hit that like button, shoot it with your big old Blastoise cannons, and really get it in there. Drive it home to that algorithm that you want to see more from me, and you want to help me spread the love to the whole YouTube community. And without further ado, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.